Hi, everyone. Welcome to SBR Sports Picks. Today is Friday, May 19th. Of course, the Preakness Stakes is coming up on Saturday, and I've already done some coverage with it. We're going to get some more thoughts from two guys who follow this stuff closely, two SBR contributors, and also from Odds Market and BMR, Jay Price and Martin Green. Jay Price, quickly say hi to give people your Twitter and anything else you want to say about yourself.
No, I'm just a usual SBR writer. I'm actually not on Twitter. So.
Okay. And Martin Green, same to you.
It's at Martin W. Green on Twitter, regular SBR contributor too, often covering soccer, various other sports, big horse racing fan, looking forward to the Preakness.
All right, sounds good. So we got the Preakness Stakes here. Of course, as always, it's a much more modest field, only 10 horses. Factors are, of course, the muddy track and the Kentucky Derby. Who did that help? Who did that hurt? And what can we take from it? Classic Empire, of course, got beat up, had a bad start. That totally ruined his chances of winning the Kentucky Derby. He also has been a very inconsistent horse in his career. Great talent, which is why he's one of the favorites. Also had an eye issue, right? His eye was scratched. So kind of a banged up horse, a little bit of an unknown quantity, despite the fact that he is one of the favorites. So let's talk about the two favorites, Always Dreaming and Classic Empire. Right now, I'm just going to quote Bet365 lines, and these are lines where if the horse gets scratched, you get a push. Other places might have futures odds where you get better odds, but if the horse gets scratched, you still lose. At Bet365 now, Always Dreaming 4-6. Classic Empire 7-2. Let's start with you, Martin. Do you think there should be that big of a discrepancy in the odds between Always Dreaming and Classic Empire?
Well, yeah, the winner of the Kentucky Derby does always start as a heavy favourite in this sort of in the Preakness, and yeah, I just think there hasn't been another horse this season like Exaggerator that was really running Nyquist close last time around. So it does make sense that the discrepancy is there, but I think Classic Empire will break better in this race, and he should make the most of being on faster ground, and I think that looks a very attractive set of odds on Classic Empire this time around.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it feels at first glance, especially in light of how his race ran in the Kentucky Derby. Although, you know, he's also been an inconsistent horse in his whole career. Jay Price, if you had a free bet and you could have one on Always Dreaming at 4-6 or Classic Empire at 7-2, which one would you take? Which one do you think has a little bit more value?
Well, the value better in me wants to say Classic Empire, and I do believe he's the only horse that can even come close to beating Always Dreaming, but the sensible better in me suggests just take the less value money on Always Dreaming, and we're looking at another Triple Crown threat here headed into
wow. Okay, so Classic Empire is the only horse that can even come close to beating Always Dreaming. Certainly based on the current market odds, that is the case. The third choice is looking at Lee, who of course came in second in the Derby, but was a beneficiary of a great trip and the muddy track and the pace and everything. So looking at Lee pretty clearly, had fortunate circumstances in the Derby that helped him out finishing second. And he's the second choice at third choice at 12-1 at the Bet365. And then the fourth choice is Cloud Computing 14-1, Ganavera 18-1, Conquest No Money 20-1. Let's go back to you, Martin. Classic Empire is the only horse that even has a chance of beating Always Dreaming. You think that's accurate, or do you think one of these big long shots has legitimate chance, might be undervalued a little bit?
I agree with that. I think that Always Dreaming has been the dominant horse of the season. He's still unbeaten, which is pretty impressive for a 3-year-old. And I do think that it's all Classic Empire that could be the one that could run him close. As I say, he had a bit of a bad draw in the Kentucky Derby, and I expect him to get a lot closer this time around. Cloud Computing might have an outside chance. He got a big upgrade from Castellano, is choosing to ride him instead of Ganavera for this race. Still, I think he'll fall just short. I think maybe if you're looking for a really long shot, Multiplier might be an interesting one, all the way out around the 30-1 mark. He's one of the few that's entering this race fresh because he skipped the Kentucky Derby. He's inexperienced, but he's got promise. So there could be a bet there, but I'd be pretty much looking to those two, Always Dreaming and Classic Empire, to battle it out.
All right, Multiplier I'm seeing actually at 50-1 at Bet365. All right, let's go back to Jay Price. All right, Jay Price, you seem completely sold on Always Dreaming at 4-6. So then I assume that your favorite way, the way that you're looking to bet this race would be, using Always Dreaming as the winner, and then boxing a bunch of other horses behind him in in exotics. Is that the way you're looking to bet? And if so, how so?
Yes, I'm not going to go crazy on this wager. I'm going to make up any losses with the Belmont, which is historically a better, better betting race. But with this race, yeah, I'll probably just put the two favorites on top. And honestly, if I'm going for a trifecta in this spot, I'm just going to pick Kentucky Derby runners only. I agree with Martin. I think Multiplier is probably the best horse out of this bunch to come up at least in show with this field. But looking at Lee, and I still like Gunnevera a little bit, maybe as a long shot for second or third place, despite the rider change. Mike Smith is now on board. Not much of a downgrade, but my ticket would consist of those horses.
All right. So I was looking at this one. I'm definitely, I like to bet the Kentucky Derby. I mean, sometimes I'll bet to win if I think that there's a decent value, but I really like to bet these races in matchup props, right? One horse against the other. So regardless of what happens with Always Dreaming and Classic Empire here, you can bet Looking at Lee against Gunnevera, and you're just betting them against the other one. And I was vaguely high on Cloud Computing here at 14-1, but it seems like you guys aren't so thrilled with that horse. He is the fourth choice, again, at 14-1, just a little bit behind Looking at Lee. I think he's got his style of running is appropriate for the Preakness. It's he's more of a speed horse, so he might be near the front or at the front, but more likely just off the pace, stalking, and then might be able to make up some nice ground late with a closing kick, but he won't have that much ground to make, because he's going to be near the front. His natural preferred style of running is toward the front, and I'm not expecting him to beat Always Dreaming or Classic Empire, but I think Cloud Computing in a matchup prop, especially against Looking at Lee, might have some nice value. Do you disagree with that, guys? Let's start with you, Martin Green. What do you think about that analysis?
No, I agree with that analysis. I feel like Cloud Computing will finish ahead of him in this one. I totally agree with you talking about his style. This could work out to be the perfect stalking trip. He'll save ground racing behind Always Dreaming, and then I expect him to finish well, and I do expect him to hopefully, surge past.
All right, and then going back to Jay Price, I'm kind of high on Cloud Computing. You sound like you're higher on Multiplier. Of course, Multiplier 50-1, getting much longer odds there. What's your take on Cloud Computing? And do you just disagree with me that he might be worth a bet in matchup props?
No, I agree. I think he's worth a bet in matchup props. I just, out of all the new shooters in this race, I was looking at the value with Multiplier as far as the money. None of them, I think, really. All of them are long shots, in my opinion, to even come in second place, more or less third place. I think Cloud Computing's issue are, he's run 2 route races in his life, and he's been kind of going backwards down the stretch. He looks like he's in form. He's getting the rider change. I understand why, he's the favorite out of the new blood in the race, if you will. But, still, he's not with his tactical speed. He can't match the favorites coming out of the Derby. There's a reason why, he didn't make the Derby.
Right. Sure. Yeah, all right. So maybe in terms of betting value, a Multiplier might be the way to go in matchup props, because Multiplier will be, pretty much even with Senior Investment, a bit of an underdog to a Conquest No Money. If you wanted to bet Multiplier against another horse in a matchup prop, do you think that might have some value? Let's go back to you, Jay Price.
I mean, Senior Investment also, I think, has a good amount of value out of the new blood, but I wouldn't take any of these horses against one of the Derby runners.
Right. Okay. But all right, so what about Multiplier against Conquest No Money? What's your take on that one? Is Conquest No Money fadeable, or you like that horse as well?
Yeah, I think Conquest No Money is the most fadeable in this race. I would definitely take Multiplier. He just has a better running style to kind of plod along and come in front late. I think Conquest No Money might get caught a little bit in the speed and just fall flat. So.
All right, Conquest No Money right now 20-1. Gunnevera, of course, ran the Derby 18-1, hence 22-1. Martin Green, Jay Price just gave the opinion that Conquest No Money might be the most fadeable horse out of all in this race. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I think Multiplier should finish well ahead of him. Ran a superb race in the Illinois Derby. Cloud Computing looks good. Always Dreaming and Classic Empire obviously going to battle it out. Gunnevera has been a relatively consistent horse over the season. Term of Art might be one that you could fade as well, possibly Senior Investment. But yeah, it's probably between those three for me as the most fadeable.
All right, sounds good. So let's wrap it up with some final bet recommendations. My bet recommendations, coming into this call, I was looking to bet on cloud computing against looking at Lee in the matchup props department. I'm still looking to fade looking at Lee, but I think I might go with your guys' advice to look a little bit harder at multiplier, and I'm definitely looking at Gunnevara and maybe to bet on, and then maybe to fade with Conquest Mo Money as well. So those are my current leans as of right now. Definitely looking to fade looking at Lee in matchup props, bet on cloud computing, Gunnevara, and maybe multiplier as well. Let's get your final thoughts on this race and final betting recommendations. Let's start with you, Martin Green. How are you looking to bet this race, and what would you recommend our viewers look for?
Yeah, I'm going to go for multiplier on the matchup bets. That's my main lean right now. I can't really see past Always Dreaming taking on Classic Empire for winning it. I'd like to think that Classic Empire's got a chance if he gets a better break, but yeah, the sensible person in me says just go for Always Dreaming. He's been so dominant this season that it's hard to look past him.
All right, sounds good. And Jay Price, how about you? Final thoughts on the race, and how are you looking to bet it? What would you recommend our viewers think about when they're looking to get down their Preakness bets?
I'm just going to single Always Dreaming in the pick 3 or pick 4 with a few races around it. And then with the race itself, I might put Classic Empire just on top and then scatter a few Derby horses underneath, including Always Dreaming in second, looking at Lee and Gunnevara for second and third.
All right, Martin Green and Jay Price, thanks so much. Of course, I'm Peter Loshak. Really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Pete.